Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto live stream. How you doing? I am one half of your host, Boi Crypto. I have here with me, as always, Crypto Ewok. We have a big show for you tonight, and as you can see on the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about, are we in an alt season right now? I know it doesn't feel like it when it comes to PulseChain necessarily, even though we've seen a recovery from the dip we saw a week or two ago, but we're going to talk about what an alt season actually is. There's been some debate about that lately, and when we're going to get there with PulseChain, we've seen a lot of big things happening. We have wallets that are associated with the PulseChain sacrifice funds moving big money around. We have other whale actions happening as well. We have some updates with the BankX situation. A tweet from Richard Hart the other day about correlation of PulseChain to the rest of crypto that we really want to get to. Some news that's kind of interesting from the guys at Coast on ramp into PulseChain today we're going to get into, and a whole lot more. KD, Pulse Believer, welcome in, guys. Hit the like. Everybody that's getting into the show now. Ewok, how are you this evening? How are you feeling about the markets?
Oh, it's another Tuesday. I'm feeling pretty good, though. I said to you earlier, I'm like, man, I'm not feeling it tonight. But, once you get started, you're always good to go. It's just, one of those days. We all have them. But everything else in the markets are looking all right. I mean, sideways, more chop. Bitcoin headed up a little bit higher. So that's positive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is super interesting what's happening in the rest of crypto right now. And obviously, we assume PulseChain will follow here eventually. And again, it has been recovering over the last couple of days. So hit us up with comments over the course of the show tonight. We have a poll question in there, just simply asking you, are we in an alt season right now? Yes or no? Some people like to be cute and put a third option that's like, I don't give a fuck or something like that. I just like to keep things like straight down the middle. Hopefully DJ and Moonboy enjoys this poll question, although I don't even see him in the chat. So where you at, man? But yeah, I like to just keep it nice and simple for everybody. So check it out. And yeah, let's see where we're at. So you just said it, Ewok. Bitcoin, absolutely insane right now. Pumping up to over 57K now. We both admit, or I at least do, I won't speak for you, but I admit definitely being wrong on where I thought the next move would go. You can look back a few weeks ago and we were both thinking we'd be down into the 30s. That 48K number was a spot that we thought would be kind of heavy resistance before we went back down. We've just seen continued strength, which is just insane. I'm pinching myself. Literally, I'll pinch myself right here, right on the nipple for everybody. We're at 57K. I mean, that's a mere 12K off of the all-time high. Now, I personally don't think we're going anywhere near that right now. I guess we are kind of near it, but I don't think we're headed in that direction. I think we've got to hit a brick wall here soon. And I do think we will get back into those high 30s at least, which a lot of people aren't seeing right now. If you go throughout Twitter, you're going to see a lot of super bullish sentiment, but we have ETH at 3250, and you can look at the rest of the alts. But yeah, the strength of Bitcoin right now, Ewok. Talk about what you're seeing, and then we'll kind of parlay that statement into, we've been seeing a lot of people on Twitter today, including Money Gang Crypto, talking about like, this is one of the highest points that we've been at pre-Bitcoin halving for Bitcoin ever before. Yeah. So yeah, what do you make of this right now?
Well, yeah. And, usually that pullback, what I was looking at the charts, it happens right about a month before. And I guess, we haven't even gotten that far yet because it's predicted to be on April 14th, 16th, something around there. So we do have another probably 2 weeks of this. So it'll be very interesting to see how high it can get. Now, will it touch all-time high? I don't think so, but I've been wrong before. I was wrong about this. I thought we would at least get some sort of pullback, like you said, back into this 48K, maybe a little bit lower range. That's kind of where I can see it going. You look at the RSI, it's definitely overbought. It started to flatten out last week, what was it, the 19th? And it was kind of turning down. If you look right here, started to turn back down and then just poop back right back up. So, the strength index is still pointed up. I think another couple weeks and it could really hit that wall. I just thought it would be just a little bit earlier, but yeah, it's looking good. It's looking strong. You've got the dominance at 53.7, almost 54%. That's going to be good too, to see that number come back down as things kind of trickle back into Ethereum and some altcoins. Ethereum good too. So, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weekly green candles so far, and it's just like I said, everything is looking strong in these major markets. I don't see it in the alts as much, but this is at least looking good. It's pulling everything else with it.
Well, you bring up a good point, and I want to go back to where Bitcoin is right now in a moment. But yeah, you bring up a good point about ETH and the alts. I mean, ETH has been starting to run, even though Bitcoin's been running so hard, ETH has been starting to run pretty good against it. And once it does kind of catch it here, that is when we could really see the alts start to go. And I think it would be when Bitcoin starts to peel back a little bit. Acknowledging what Hex Girl is saying here, and we have a big conversation here because I want to look at that Money Gang crypto tweet that I did just post in the chat if you guys want to check it out. But Hex Girl says, if we don't get a pullback in BTC, this bull run will be short, I think. I mean, essentially, I think what she's saying, kind of longer term is like, yeah, if we see this run kind of continue and maybe see all-time highs come, earlier this year than we would have expected, I agree. I mean, that's pretty much been the operating thing, that Bob Lucas has talked about, Sami's talked about for a long time, the possibility of a left translated cycle. With how bullish we are right now, regardless of why it is, yeah, that leads to a further likelihood of that. I mean, it's still wait and see right now. I still don't think we've definitely seen anything to say that that's what we're going to get. But yes, I agree, and it wouldn't be my preference. I really don't want this to continue, as weird as that is to say. If you've been around markets for a little bit, you kind of want it to cool off and do what it traditionally does, especially because our bags haven't pumped yet. So, quite simply,
too.
yeah. But yeah, which I mean, it's not even just PulseChain. I mean, like the alts, while some of them have run for sure, we haven't seen anything, compared to what has happened in past cycles while we've seen this bullish action from Bitcoin. So, yeah, what do you make of that, Ewok? Like, just ETH looking like it's starting to catch BTC, and we don't have to get into the whole alt season conversation because we're going to talk about that a bit more later. But her idea about the earlier cycle and the chances of a left translated earlier cycle like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. We don't know the effect of the ETF, still.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very, early in the whole stages of that. So, I think that whole thing has to play out. Again, you said it as well. We're so early. The halving hasn't even happened yet. So, we've got all the rest of this year. We've got the most of next year, if not all of next year. There's a lot of time. People are getting kind of strangely weird about the alts not doing anything. And like you said, I know we'll talk about this later, but you have to realize how early in the cycle we are. This is still a lot of the sideways area that things kind of hang out in for the better part of all this year. So if you're not patient and you're one of those people that has to, see something happening at all times, you might want to close your wallet and walk away for about 8 or 10 months. Otherwise, you could, I hate to see people FUD their own bags, and that's kind of what I'm starting to see. I've been seeing it a lot, but more and more as it just goes sideways and doesn't do anything, we're going to continue to see more of the same.
Yeah, I think you're right. As weird as it is to say, because we've said it so much for like 2 years now on this show, but yeah, we just need to be patient. I mean, and things have already started to move. So, I mean, there is some positives there, but,
Sure.
It's not going to be all Bitcoin. But looking at that Money Gang crypto tweet real quick, and actually, if you want to bring it up from the chat Ewok and share it on screen, you can, but it's not that big a deal. I can just kind of read what he says too. But he said the current Bitcoin cycle is outperforming its 2021 run prior to BTC halving back in May 2020. The price currently sits at 269% gain from its low in the bear market at just under 57K BTC. During the 21 run up, BTC did 220% gain in the halving. What it's currently mimicking, this is the interesting part, it's mimicking the 2017 bull run, whereby prior to the halving in 2016, Bitcoin moved 326% gain. If the pattern of 2017's bull run plays out, Bitcoin will land around the 66K to 68K mark at the halving on April 25th. That would be insane, because that's the previous all-time high and already getting there at the halving, which people are not expecting. I mean, we were more thinking of that maybe later in the year. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen. But yeah, if it continues to follow, he's just simply saying if it follows the 2017 trend, that's what we would be seeing. So yeah, what do you make of that? I mean, and there's he's not the only person pointing this out. I saw Hansy was on Twitter talking about this earlier today. We've seen it from a few people. So yeah, what do you make of that?
Well, again, that puts it right at almost all-time high in between, the two levels. We have the double top kind of thing, puts it right in between the two of those. And, like it says, it did the very similar thing in 2017 where it went that high before it actually pulled back. So, every cycle has had a pullback. It's just that's part of the cycle, and it's the same until it's not, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's just as possible as it hitting a brick wall tomorrow and following 2021's run. So,
right,
where are we at now? 269%. So,
nice.
It's in between right now, 220 and 326. So, I mean, you take the average of all these runs, and we're still in that middle area. So, I don't make anything of it until it does something spectacularly different. If it does the same as 2017, well, then it's still within that average range. So, yeah, it's one of those just wait and see. You can't predict it. Again, we don't know what the ETF effects are yet of all of this. So it could play out as a completely different thing because now there's a different catalyst involved. So
very true.
Interesting to watch for sure.
Interesting comment by Harvey Diaz here. He says, no way Bitcoin hits 39K again. He doesn't realize it, but he actually just confirmed Bitcoin will definitely go below 39K again. So just have
way to go, Harvey.
Yeah, way to go, Harvey. But I do think we will see it again, regardless, though. But honestly, that sentiment right there, I mean, all over Twitter today, there was some dude who like maxed out a whole bunch of credit cards buying BTC today. I mean, it's like classic.
Yep.
What the hell are you doing, dude? I mean, it's too euphoric for BTC right now. It just doesn't make sense. And go ahead.
I think I saw a lot of people pulling their shorts too, as well, and not the shorts they're wearing, but the shorts they have in crypto. So
probably both.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, you're seeing all the signs. Yeah, you're seeing some of these accomplished traders that were short on Bitcoin, and they're like, "Oh, never mind. I mean, we're pumping. It looks stronger than I thought it was, and all these things." But and that doesn't mean this move is going to reverse overnight. I mean, we could still stay here for even another couple of weeks. But yeah, I definitely see it heading back down there for sure. So, yeah. So interesting stuff for the first time in a while. Some interesting stuff talking about BTC. So, yeah, good thoughts from everybody there. Let's take a look at the PulseChain ecosystem right now. We got Pulse at hanging out where it's been the last couple of weeks, basically at the 0.00135 mark, roughly. We got PulseX at about 48% below the SAC rate, and we have the combined hexes sitting at about 2.4 cents right now. We have seen a bit of a recovery over the major dip that we had there. I guess it was about 2 weeks ago or so. But yeah, things are kind of coming back up, and we're hanging out in this zone right now. So I know that I aped in a good bit during this downturn that we just had over last weekend. So that was very nice. But yeah, if you want to pull up the Pulse chart, Ewok, we could take a look at that too. But my inkling is that, we've continued to stay on the pattern that we're pretty much on, and I definitely still feel bullish. I just think we talked about this on last week's show. When we did have that dip, it was the sentiment was crazy bearish. I mean, like, just people were very, very upset. And we talked about, like, is this really more so time related than it is price related? And I really think that's what it is. And people talk about that, like, jealousy pump thing, or jealousy FOMO. Like, people are seeing all these other tokens pump, including BTC right now. And, why hasn't PulseChain 10x'd by now, basically? I think we're starting to see that. Yeah. So what? Yeah. What do you make of where we're at? Because I mean, the chart still looks good to me.
Looks great. It looks really good. Again, I said this last week and the week before, and as long as we keep making higher lows and stair stepping, this is perfect. Like, again, you're gonna look back in 6 months, and it may continue just to keep doing this as people get shaken out, and the next thing we've lost to zero. you
Yeah.
know, I don't understand why people are so, you know, they're just not happy with what it's doing, but it is very healthy. Wait, this is PLSX. Hang on a second.
I was going to say something looked a little off there. I mean,
Yeah.
either way, I mean, it's also been recovering well too, and has been pumping. People have talked about how PulseX and Inc have both pumped hard whenever the ecosystem starts to pump. But there you go.
This is
Yeah,
USDC,
that's it.
but still, I mean, you get the idea, and it's still doing the same thing. Again, still, following the same pattern as all the other charts. It's not anything different. It's just at a different level. That's all. And like I said, the next thing you know, within a couple months, it's gonna go up. It's gonna pull back. It's gonna go up. And then guess what? Right here, we've already doubled SAC rate. So before you know it, if you're not paying attention, and you're concerned that it's not doing a 10x overnight, which I think people still want that to happen or want entities to buy in. We talk about some of these. We'll talk about this probably in a little bit as well, but this is so much healthier than just doing a straight up green candle.
Yeah.
It's more sustainable, and it won't come back down past there because most likely a lot of these have been filled. People are getting the ranges that they want, and they're getting out while new money is still coming in. Maybe not millions at a time, but enough to keep the price in this trajectory. So, yeah, this is looking so super healthy right now, and while it's not mega bullish, it's bullish enough to be excited about it.
I totally agree, and you're right about, we get up to that area where previous all-time high was or even near it. There's not a lot of room up there. So, I mean, you could just kind of elevator way. I mean, I remember when we were at those all-time highs because it was probably like June of last year, and it wasn't for very long. So,
Yep.
yeah. So once we're there, boy, who knows where we could go after that. So,
Well, and
um,
here's another real
yeah,
quick point too. It's 52 weeks to shake out the weekends, and we're what, 9.5 months in, or
yeah,
roughly.
yeah,
So
yeah, we're very
another
close.
2.5 months. Like I said, you look back and you'll be double sack rate and be like, oh shit, what happened? You know,
That's how it goes. Yeah, you missed the
how it
lows. I
goes.
mean, like you're probably never getting Pulse X with that extra zero on it ever again. You had Pulse at quadruple 033 or something like that, which
Yep.
I'm happy that I was able to buy those prices, but it always feels like never enough, once you've already gone up. So
Sure.
good stuff there. I'm going to bounce around a little bit based on what our pregame notes were because some of this stuff I just don't care about. And if we get to it at the end, that's fine.
That's fine.
But a good transition there by, I guess it was KD, I think, in the chat that you just put up about getting the weak hands out. So we'll just go to the BankX thing now. There's been a slight update with what's going on with that entity. It's a running story. I don't want to rehash everything about them, but in case you don't know anything about them, so BankX was an entity that promised an algorithmic stablecoin that was tied to silver, basically. The Hex God Whale allegedly sacrificed a bagazillion, I think, Hex it was, to them during that sacrifice phase. A lot of people think he fat fingered it. They don't know what was going on. There's a lot of speculation. Anyway, for a long time, there's a lot of people who have had, oh, what's BankX going to do with all the Hex that they have and worrying about it. And just a couple of weeks ago, we saw that they put about, it was half of their stack left. So like 350 million or so eHEX for sale between 1.2 cents to 2.8 cents. Well, now the update over this past week is the whole thing is for sale up there now. So basically, well, I think it's all but like 40 million.
54.
Okay, 54. So 650 million eHEX are all for sale between 1.2 and 2.8 cents. I'm assuming just kind of tapered for BankX. Yeah, there it is. I did have that in my notes. So 53, 54 million left after that. And again, I'll just keep saying the same thing we always do. People worry about this stuff sometimes and think about it and like, how can HEX even go? I just saw somebody in the chat a few minutes ago. As long as HEX is dragging us all down, we're never going to go up. Dude, it's all on how you look at it. I just don't think that's the proper way to look at it. And look, this is bullish to know this information. Like, we have one big entity that is holding HEX that is just a couple of cells away from being out. Okay. And I totally agree with what KD said. We want to get them out ASAP. We know who they are. We know what their plans are as far as selling it. These are all good things. You look around at these other chains like Solana, like Polygon Matic, Arbitrum, Optimism, stuff like that. Scheduled token unlocks from VCs who got to invest before any of us did, in seed rounds before the thing went live. You don't know when it's coming, and then one day you just get smacked in the face with a huge sell from those people. So can we get smacked in the face sometimes, in this ecosystem by big sells? Yeah, but we are able to see most of it on chain and like know who the entities are. So that's pretty much my 2 cents on it. But Ewok, yeah, what do you make of that story? And now that we know that basically their whole stack is up for sale.
Yeah, I think it's I forget how many $1 million, whatever would put us right past it. The one thing I don't want to happen is, everybody's saying Godwell should just buy that right back. He should just buy that right back. Well, then we're in the same spot we were before, right? Where you've got one other big entity who maybe doesn't value it because he's already given it up once. What's he going to do again? We're right in the same boat. Let's eat through it. If people would buy this up at these rates, there are some good sized buys that could happen. So if you have friends that want in, that have larger bags, it's not going to hurt the price. They're going to get a hell of a deal. Right now is the time where you should be getting some of those bigger investors in. Granted, we don't want someone to come in with $15 million and just buy it up, all of it, because again, we're back in the same boat we were before. Now, don't forget, there's also 80 some sharks and I think 3 or 4 whales or whatever there are in the system that could do very similar thing. But once this gets eaten up, it's going to take off. There isn't much holding it back, and because Johnny's here, I'll give him credit for saying it. He's it's closer to the on and off ramp. So this is the place where a lot of people are still going to come. They don't know about PulseChain. They maybe aren't sold on it yet. But they're gonna be coming in and out through Ethereum. They don't care about the fees. It's close to the on ramp. It's close to the off ramp. This is the thing they're probably going to buy until they get used to the system or whatever it is, and get their stuff moved over to PulseChain. eHEX is going to be the one that runs. It's going to pull everything else with it. And everyone's like, well, Hex is holding everything down right now, but it's going to be the one that could be pulling it up. So, and yes, especially with Coast, what's happening, they don't have that other on ramp to just get in over there. So, it is closer. So yeah, like I said, I just want, a bunch of people to buy this up and fortify their own bags. And we don't have that situation where it's just one less whale we've got to worry about dumping the price.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, let the organic ecosystem of people who do believe in this long term and are interested in investing in it get their hands on that for sure. So, yeah, we'll continue to update that story if updates do come. I don't know if you wanted to get rid of just realized we still have the chart up there. There we go. We got to see our faces zoomed in. You just got a haircut the other day, so we want to make sure people can see that. So, so we'll continue to update the BankX stuff when necessary here. So, one other interesting story and a little bit tied to that in terms of people capitulating. So we had a huge HEX shark. I think it was on Sunday. Emergency in stake a bunch of HEX. And the payout per t-shirt, you DM'd me whenever this happened. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like one of the top 3 payout in HEX history. I think I saw Katie said. It was like 19.
19.
Okay, second. Second most of all time, 19 hex per T share on Sunday, which is crazy. I mean, we're usually, 6 to 8 to 9 or something like that. The guy or girl paid 650 million hex in penalties and sold the remaining 30 million hex after that, it looked like. Second highest payout in history to stakers. What do you make of this story? Like, why would this person do this now and at least not wait until maybe more towards the area where like BankX is selling or something? I don't know. We don't know what anybody's motive could be. Could they have needed some of the money right now? I mean, to do something like that, it is so easy to just be like, this is moronic. What an idiot and all these things. And maybe they are, but who knows? I mean, I don't know what compels people to do that. So yeah, what do you make of that happening, especially with where we're at in the cycle right now? I mean, literally, coming off the lows here.
It really makes me wonder, especially the amount of penalties that they paid. I was trying to look up the Hex Daily stats to find it, but I'm not seeing it right now. Either way, it makes me wonder if it was a hack, if somebody pissed off their wife and they got the keys and said, it's one of those freak things that you just don't know what happens or what goes on in someone's life where they may have really just needed the money. But it's going to happen throughout the next so many years. I mean, we're going to see these things happening to where, you see it all the time. I wish I would have held my 10,000 BTC instead of selling it at $3. I wish I would have held it till $8. Well, 10,000 BTC is crazy to think about. And we're going to see very similar things in this ecosystem as well. Again, you don't know what happened. You like to think that they just needed the money, and hopefully they got taken care of what they needed to. I would hate to see it as a hack. We all remember Hex 19 when he lost his major stack of things due to a hack. And that was so very unfortunate. We just haven't heard anything yet. I haven't anyway, on what happened. But yeah, well, whether they may not have been believers, maybe they just had an emergency. Who knows? Either way, we're all here to make money and we're all here to take care of things. And whether they believed or not, I think they sold everything though. So usually the people that believe at least hang on to a little bit, right? Keep a moon bag of something. But that wallet got completely drained. So yeah, who knows? Who knows what happened? But either way, that's one more down, right?
One more down for sure. Yeah, that one's kind of an out of nowhere one, but all of us who are staked out benefited pretty greatly from that one. So pretty nice little bag of hex for sure. So if you guys are here and enjoying the stream so far, do us a favor, hit the like. We appreciate you being here. Support Real DeFi. We got 63 watching at the moment. Only 25 likes. So let's get that 1-to-1 ratio. Let's get that parity on both chains, if you will. So thank you guys for being here. We have a hot chat tonight, so we appreciate all your comments and stuff, guys. Let's go to this, a big story from just yesterday, actually, I believe. So one of the wallets that's directly related to the PulseChain sacrifice funds just moved $704,000 of DAI stablecoin to a fresh wallet. Now, this isn't the only move that was made. There was lots over the last couple of days, and we have notes on most of it, so I'm just going to kind of look at what they were. But then provided liquidity at Compound Protocol, another wallet directly related to the sacrifice funds, split 28 million DAI to two fresh new wallets and deposited the funds to the Aave protocol, which is where, both of those protocols is where you can earn yield, if you're not familiar, on your stables. Compound and Aave are one of the really oldest lending protocols, and I think provide around 6% APY on DAI anyway. And I'm sure, there's other stuff obviously that you can stake there too. So this is very interesting to see these moves, especially with that much money. It's funny to see the reactions to it because some people are like, oh my God, here we go. A major buy is being prepared for, which if you actually read what happened, like, no, I don't think that's what's happening. And there are people on the other side that are like, would you all shut up? This isn't bullish, but just stop. Why are you even paying attention to this? And I don't agree with either one of them, really. I think that it is intriguing, and it's good to like watch what's happening there, because you can kind of glean what that entity may think of what's going on with the market. I think with this particular move. So what do you make of it, Ewok? Trying to earn yield on all those funds while potentially BTC tanks after the halving, so there's more to potentially buy the lows of whatever ecosystem that person wants to with. Yeah, what do you think? It's interesting for the move to happen right now. So what do you think of these moves?
Well, it could be a couple of different things. One of the things that it could be was, let's earn some yield. Developers aren't cheap. The ecosystem isn't cheap. Why don't we take some of this money and let it pay for itself? With 28 million in Aave, they're earning $1 million a year, I believe.
Yeah.
Whatever 6% of that. 1.2, probably 1.2-ish million a year. There was a third one too, and I forget, the Spark, maybe. There was another chunk moved into Spark, which is another lending protocol. They're all very similar. It's interesting that 28 million went to Aave and only 704,000 went to Compound. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, right? Developers fees, lawyer fees. Who knows? Maybe the OA is taking care of lawyer fees. There's several different things that it could be, and rightfully so. It belongs to the ecosystem. The ecosystem's part of the lawsuit. So I think it would be only right or only fair to let it earn some interest and let it pay that off as well. So, lawyers aren't cheap. Blockchains aren't cheap. There's a lot of things that everyone's saying. They wish that entity would pump the chain. Well, I hate when I see that. It's like we're almost begging that to happen, and I don't like the look. It looks kind of desperate.
It is desperate. It's very simpy.
It is, and I don't like to see it. We all can think it, but obviously, when you've got as many loudmouths online as you have, people are going to say what they're thinking, and unfortunately, like I said, I think it looks almost desperate. Although there are a lot of videos out there where, Richard said, "What about a magic carpet ride? What about it's just like a stock buyback, right?" So he talks about it, so it's not something that's a secret. I just don't like the looks of it when we're kind of, it's almost as if we're saying, well, this chain's not going to do anything unless he pumps it. I feel like people are just sitting around waiting and being idle, and rather than when trying to increase their own positioning. So,
well, not only that, not let me just say real quick too, but not only that, but I mean, it also is like, it's called the origin address, and it's called, wallets affiliated with the sacrifice funds for a reason. I mean, like, you actually do not know who is doing what. So for everybody to like continuously say like, oh, look what this person's doing and everything like that. I mean, it's just that, I think that part of it's not a good look either. I mean, like, this is crypto. So, the wallets aren't docs. You don't know who controls the wallets. So shut up. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and Johnny said it. It's the most transparent chain, so it does have its positives and it has its negatives where everybody's watching. So you're going to be on a spotlight if you decide to dump, unless obviously nobody knows your name probably, but you are going to get called out for some things, and even the ones that are beneficial to everybody. We don't know yet what it'll be used for. I'm sure somebody will find out, right, the second they move out or some of the yield is realized, and then maybe it's used for something on chain, maybe it's not, maybe it is used to pay developers and different things as improvements come along, and that's got to be expensive, right? I mean, I know at one point when some of the devs were hired, the fee was that they were paying 175,000 a year to some of the developers. So that's expensive, right? Especially when you have 6 or 7 of them. I don't know if the workforce is still that strong now that it's pretty much done, and you probably kept your core developers around, but even 3 or 4 of them, you're still looking at $800,000 a year. So yeah, it's not cheap.
Yeah, I think to me the most interesting angle of it isn't necessarily like, oh, why are they trying to earn yield or whatever. I think it's really the timing. That's kind of what I started the question off with. Like, I mean, is this planning that we, like, well, looks like we're not dipping for the, soon right now anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and earn yield on this in the meantime, which again, at these dollar levels is a hell of a lot of yield, like you pointed out, Ewok. To buy the dip, if so it were. So to me, I think that's one of the most interesting indicators of here is like what the entity thinks of the timing of things right now.
Right.
So
And this is interesting too.
Yeah.
Hex Girl asked why liquid loans was not used. Well, the coins that were put in were DAI, and for liquid loans, you need to deposit PulseChain. So maybe the risk of using the PulseChain and having to over collateralize was a risk that the origin address wasn't willing to take. When you put things into Aave and you allow other people to borrow and earn that fee. So it's all trustless. We always go back to the, is it picking up pennies in front of freight trains? Well, not really, because it's not a centralized entity that you're just giving your coins to. This is something that is decentralized, and it's a protocol that runs on its own. So you're not really losing custody of your coins. So it's a little bit different than liquid loans, where you do have to deposit Pulse and use that protocol. It is different, and there's I think a lot less risk with Aave and with Compound.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about that. So good question, Hex Girl, and interesting thoughts from you guys for sure on that movement. We'll continue to monitor it. I mean, we have seen some huge movements, obviously, from those entities here over the last couple of months. So we'll keep checking it out for sure. Richard Hart the other day. So, I always talk about like decoding his tweets and how fun it is and everything. Well, maybe this one is more simple than I realized. But on the 21st here, so almost 6 days ago now, I think it was last Wednesday. He tweeted asking whether Pulse is decorrelated from ETH and the rest of the market. So he basically just put up a screenshot from GoPulse with, all the different prices, whatever they were that day. I think they were pretty similar to where we're at right now. And he just said, like decorrelated, or I forget what he said. It was just like decorrelated ? My question is, what was his intent tweeting that then at that time? I think Pulse was like slightly pumping at the moment, but I mean, it's not like the rest of the market was like tanking or anything. So I wasn't quite sure what he meant. But what was his point tweeting that, do you think, Ewok? And do you think that we are decorrelated from the rest of the market right now, or can we be if not? And if so, on what time frames are we talking? Because I think when people get into some of these arguments about correlation, they just talk about like short time frames that don't make any sense. It's usually a longer time frame thing that we're talking about, and you can really choose any chart and any time frame to pretend that something looks the way that you want it to, even with correlation like that. So, what did you make of his tweet? I thought it came at a curious time. Maybe I'm just dumb, but I couldn't tell what he meant by it.
Yeah, I didn't really know either. I mean, one of the famous tweets from Richard is always, the floor is lava type things, and usually when Hex or Pulse or whatever may be pumping and everything else is down. But that really wasn't the case, I don't think, when that went off. So on hexfire.io, thanks to Crispy Man, here's the correlation chart. So, you're looking at Pulse even to Ethereum, and it's 0.21% correlated. So, 20.21% of the liquidity, I guess, is bonded in a way, which I don't. I mean, I even think that's a little high, but yeah. So your point is maybe it's 21%, maybe it's not 0.21. Either way, here's the correlation chart. and it's totally Pulse and Bitcoin are totally it's negative. So when you see that number being negative, it's very uncorrelated. So it's the same Pulse with a lot of things, with BTC, with the dollar, NASDAQ, those are all negative. Whereas, you look at Bitcoin, and it's like correlated almost 90% to Ethereum. So when it moves, Ethereum moves right along with it. And that's, obviously that ties back to Hart's Law, right? Because most of the pairs are tied that heavy together. So much of the volume is BTC to ETH and trading like that. So, yeah, it was strange. I don't understand, at the time, I didn't see anything crazy moving. Maybe there was a little pump that I didn't notice. But I think it's going to be a lot more obvious as we get to a pullback, to see which things are running and maybe which are decorrelated at that time. And maybe he was just kind of breaking out that crystal ball there to give us a foreshadowing of what could possibly be to come.
That's exactly what my point was just going to be, and Patrick kind of said it here too. But what you just said, Ewok, I was thinking that, like, especially with what we've seen from these other wallet entities this week, and thinking that maybe a time frame may be pushed back as far as like those funds being interested in entering the market or anything. That tweet from Richard could have been like the setup for what may be to come here. You know what I mean? That we are seeing BTC fly right now. We haven't seen PulseChain fly right behind it necessarily. And again, ETH is still catching up to it too a little bit. But is it that when BTC does that pullback that we talked about at the top of the show, that one viewer said there's no way we're going back to 39K. When we do go back to 39K or somewhere around that area, is that when we see PulseChain pump? Because that's exactly what I think is being set up for here. I think we're being set up for Bitcoin to come crashing back down over the course of a couple of months. And then not only will we see alts fly, I think that will provide like a bigger alt season. And I think the PulseChain will be a huge part of that at that time. Do you think maybe that's what he was maybe intimating? Because that's what I think might be happening here.
Yeah, it's possible. Again, I mean, he's on a different level of thinking than a lot of us. So I'm not sure exactly where he was headed with it, but it could be. Now, I really maybe a good segment into this alt season discussion, but I still don't see when BTC pulls back, we're going to have little gains, but it's not going to be our big alt season. I think people are getting it really confused. So,
well, let's table that for just a second here, because that's that I did have that question purposely right after this part. Let me ask you this real quick before we get into that. So Patrick here says hex pump and top. Is that what it says? And top up in a different timing than the rest of the crypto market alt season bull run 2021. Yeah, it was different timing in 2021. Maybe the same for PulseChain 24, 25. I mean, yeah, that's on a longer time horizon, but yes, I mean, we did see, for anybody that wasn't around at the time, Hex pretty much topped out in September of 2021, and then we saw Bitcoin hit its second double top. And a lot of alts hit new all-time highs in November of 2021. So we did see Hex kind of front run it. And yeah, I mean, that's only about a 60-day difference or so, as far as using those time markers we are. But do you think we could see something like that again, Ewok, where it just eventually here, like we're talking end of bull market stuff, we see this ecosystem top off like way before Bitcoin's done, or maybe way after it, actually, just either way, not matching up exactly with Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think it's decorrelated in that sense where people start exiting positions in Bitcoin, and they've taken some profits. They want to go back on risk on a lot of different things and get that final gains. And I think that's what we saw with Hex in the last cycle. Is it was so the first time Hex or the first time Bitcoin topped was in April, I believe, and then had a pullback, and that's when the Hex run kind of started from April into September, and then it topped out in September. And then, like I said, there was a lot of profit taken at that point because it started to come back down. We had started having sacrifice phases, and then we had that weird candle that put the Bitcoin at the double top and went to 69K.
Nice.
I don't know that we'll have that double top again. I think because of the pump so early this time and it being a larger pump, don't know that we'll get the double top. But who's to say what entity doesn't say, well, we're going to pump this one last time and get what we can out of it. And because there are some larger entities now that will be pumping price to take some more profits at the end. So kind of got to watch out for that too. Hard to say.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, but it was a little bit like that last time. I don't think we're going to see like a double top scenario again with Bitcoin. I think that was probably unique to the last cycle. But yeah, we'll see how Hex and the PulseChain ecosystem kind of decorrelates itself. Let's look at this Altseason question. So if you want to get rid of the Hex Fire, and yeah, shout out Crispy Man because he does have insane data on there. Him and Axis Alive are always working really hard on that kind of stuff. But what is an Altseason? So our poll question tonight was just quite simply, are we in an Altseason right now? In your opinion, yes or no? And it's pretty much split. 53% say no, 47% say yes so far. So let's try to define what this is. What actually is an Altseason? We see it all the time. You see major crypto influencers always talking about it and traders and stuff like that. You and I actually have been going back and forth on this, basically over people were getting pissed off at Sami, which they often do, because he was talking about, hey, we may be already pretty deep into an Altseason right now. And people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, things haven't even moved. What's going on? And I think there's more nuance to what he was talking about than that. I think he was more referencing like he started calling it a warm-up Altseason. He didn't mean like, Bitcoin's at a new all-time high and all coins are flying against Bitcoin. He didn't mean that. But he meant that we're in an Altseason, not like the Altseason right now. And that a lot of stuff has moved. I mean, as much as people don't want to admit it, maybe with PulseChain, like a lot of stuff has moved. Not like what we're probably going to see this bull cycle, but we have seen movement from a lot of altcoins for sure. So I think what he means is just that we've gone up a lot already. Doesn't mean it's the final huge BTC Altseason or whatever. But let's just try to define what an Altseason actually is, how many there may be within a cycle, and what you consider an Altseason. So Ewok, I'll throw it to you. I mean, like, I know your interpretation when you saw him tweeting that, I think was more so like, no, an Altseason is like the huge blow off when we're over Bitcoin all-time high and stuff. So how do
Yes.
you kind of look at it? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I mean, it's
There's
just how
not.
people look at it. But yeah, what do you make of it?
Yeah, there's not a right or wrong answer. You can call it what you want, and people define it differently. But we have to remember Hart's law is effective just the same for PulseChain as it is Ethereum for Bitcoin and things like that. The reason you're seeing a lot of these altcoins run right now is because the majority of the trading pair is probably tied to Bitcoin. So guess what? When Bitcoin runs up, you're going to see these coins that are heavily correlated by their trading pair to Bitcoin. You're going to see them go too. Um, and one of the reasons why we're not seeing it on our side is because there are no trading pairs, right? You don't see a Bitcoin and PulseChain trading pair anywhere. So it's not affecting us like it is a lot of the other things that are tradable on Binance or Coinbase or whatever if you're going to trade those tokens. So um to call this an Altseason, like I said, I've always been one of the opinions where Altseason doesn't start until you get the all-time high for Bitcoin. It rallies 28 days later. You probably see roughly 28 days. You see the Ethereum top. Ethereum Foundation pays off or sells a bunch of tokens again.
Right.
And then that's when Altseason, for me, my definition of it, that's when it starts. And you start to see this crazy run up of everything because people are taking on more risk with their profits and things like that. So, for me, I think we're way early. I don't think you've seen anything yet. In fact, Big Funky said it. This thing has barely started. I don't think we're anywhere near that point. to even call it an alt season. I just think it's a warm up is a good term probably to use. A warm up for the bull market. We haven't even hit the halving yet, so there's a lot of things in play that just haven't happened yet, and I think people are just kind of putting the cart in front of the horse at this point. And maybe there's a lot of new people in this system and that don't understand it or haven't seen it yet. But you'll know you'll know when it's here, and I just don't think we've gotten to that point yet.
Well, I do agree with you. I mean, I think like the major what people might classically mean as alt season is when we get over Bitcoin all-time high and things fly like melt your face basically type territory. To defend what I think Sami's saying a little bit and go into what he's saying. I will say I think sometimes he says stuff and positions them in a way where he wants to do the opposite of what most like crypto influencers do, because they want you to just go in on a wing and a prayer and, hey, if you've got $500 laying around, if you put it into this, you'll become a millionaire.
Right.
Like a lot of people are operating totally fucking backwards, like compared to how you should be. So I'm not saying he's like lying or infatuating like what he means, but I think he wants to come at it at a far more conservative level. So like, how can you really be that pissed at yourself later on if you come at it that way? Like if you are buying every penny that you possibly can right now with any spare change, are you going to be more mad at yourself later? If these are tokens that you believe in anyway, that you're investing in, I don't think you will, So I think he just likes to prepare people to like be as aggressive as humanly possible now, because you're not going to be able to do anything later. So
Yep.
I think that's where he comes out with a lot of that stuff. And again, like
Yeah.
I said, a lot of alts have moved. I mean, like we've seen, I know I sent you and you and I both watched that stream with, the BitMEX guy, Arthur Hayes, a couple of weeks ago on Jesus, I can't remember anything. What's that channel? Hot British chick interviewed him.
I hadn't watched it until you told me about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll have to start watching that because she's quite attractive.
Well, it's a guy. The guy's name is Guy. I don't know why I can't think of his channel right
Yeah.
now. He's been around forever, but he kind of just always toes the line and doesn't really give any real opinion on anything, and shits on Hex on Twitter occasionally and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
they interviewed Arthur Hayes, and they were talking about like AI coins being a narrative, and a lot of AI coins have already gone up a ton, just because it's like it may be total garbage, but it's like slap AI on there, and people are like, oh, they're willing to speculate. So make no mistake. I mean, we have definitely seen a lot of tokens move hard. But that doesn't mean, the question that we put in the show tonight, it says, it's not piss chain, pulse chain. Has it missed alt season? And that's definitely not true. I mean, number one, if we are even in a muted one right now, I don't think that we're at the end of it necessarily. And I mean, the real gains are going to come when Bitcoin hits all-time high. That doesn't mean there's not going to be any gains until then at all. We're just talking about like the crazy euphoria stuff.
Sure.
So
Coin Bureau.
Coin Bureau, there you go. And to your point earlier, Ewok, or what we already talked about in the last segment, I mean, I think we're going to see this ecosystem pump when BTC is coming back down to the 30Ks again. So, I mean, they're not going to always move in concert. You don't have to have Bitcoin moving up for the alts to move up. Matter of fact, it should go the opposite direction for a while after this run. So, yeah.
Yep, I agree. And like I had mentioned earlier, I really think a lot of these run-ups with the AI coins is because they're paired with Bitcoin, and you're seeing that happen. It's funny when you see some of these new tokens that are released, even depending on their pair, and because they're weighted so heavily with that pair runs a little bit, and the new coin takes off and say, oh, look at my new coin just did a 30x. Well, your coin did a 30x because it's weighted so heavily with this coin that also did a 5x, and you got 6 times as many of them. So that's why it went 30x, and people don't really understand that. And they think they keep missing out on some of these coins. Well, they're done that way. The liquidity is set that way so that they do run whenever there's a little bit of a pulse chain rise or whatever it may be. So just beware of that, people. Like you said, you're not missing out on anything. A lot of these are rising because of Bitcoin rising, and that's all it really is right now. So, yeah, we haven't seen alt season yet. Sami can call it whatever he wants. I don't agree with the terminology, and you're right. He does wear the hat with the propeller on top.
He
So
wears literal hats. Yeah, he wears
yeah,
man of many hats.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, I think Altseason doesn't necessarily have, in Webster's dictionary. Last I looked, I don't think they have Altseason in there. So
No, not yet.
until we get it added, we'll have to just keep making our own definition. But either way, things are going up right now, so it's nice. If you guys are enjoying the stream, do us a favor, hit the like button. We appreciate you guys being here. We do this stream every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Support Real DeFi, support the show. We appreciate you guys being here and a lot of great comments in the chat tonight. Let's look at this email we got from oxCoast today. So if you're not familiar with what oxCoast is, it is one of the better ways really to, I don't want to use the term bridge because you're not really bridging, but to onboard into the PulseChain ecosystem, because you can do it straight with an ACH deposit from your bank account if you use oxCoast. It's pretty nice. You can buy the CST stablecoin there and then buy whatever you want to on PulseChain. So I know Ewok's used it a number of times. But kind of a weird email we got from them a little earlier. We got a comment on one of our earlier videos today from a viewer that wanted us to discuss it. And, all we can do is provide what we know. And there has been a couple of updates. But so here's the email that they sent out this afternoon. So this is from oxCoast. We've temporarily paused deposits and withdrawals while we work through a regulatory issue with our banking partner, Fortress Trust. So there seems to be an issue with Fortress Trust, nothing really to do with Coast. They said, fingers crossed it's resolved quickly, but we don't have an expected timeline right now. If you've initiated a deposit prior to receiving this message, it's very likely that the funds will be returned to your bank. Please stay tuned for an update. As soon as the issue is resolved, you can use the website chat feature to get more information. They're also tweeting about it too. They put up an updated tweet here just a bit ago that I bookmarked. And yeah, here it is. So important update. We've temporarily paused deposits while we work through a regulatory issue, blah, blah, blah. After the debacle with Prime Trust, we have known the importance of finding a workaround for partnering third parties for custody and payments. Over the past 6 months, we have been pursuing standalone MTLs and MSP registration, with some already being approved. So that's good to know. So there's some they actually already have approved in the background. This difficulty accelerates the timeline for us moving to be independent. In the meantime, we have several other service providers that we're evaluating who can help us to provide everyone payment rails to PulseChain, and users have other options for ramping, like bridging. Of course, you can do that too. So that seems to be pretty much the update. So it seems like it was an issue with this Fortress Trust, nothing really to do with oxCoast. So, I mean, rest assured, nothing is sketchy at all with oxCoast. It seems like they just need somebody else to partner with as far as that goes. So, yeah, what do you make of that, Ewok? And, since we don't talk about them every show, obviously, give us a bit about your experiences buying Pulse through oxCoast so far.
Well, first, there was, before I talk about the experience, there was what happened was Fortress was their main provider as far as the banking world went, to provide the on-ramp, the actual on-ramp into that. And apparently Fortress surrendered their license on February 16th. So Patrick's Astro and stuff got lucky that he got it through yesterday, because they had already surrendered their license on the 16th, which was 11 days ago. So I'm sure that they have thought of this. Those guys are pretty sharp, Stoic and the gang over there. I'm sure they had some backup plans in place. So I doubt they'll be down too long. It is good to hear that they do have some, providers that they have in the background already, lined up to do some things and have their own licenses. But I'm sure to do it in the United States, I think you have to have a money transmitter license, I think in every single state, in order to do business. So, without limiting, saying, well, we can do Delaware, but we can't do Maryland, or, we can do Arizona, but we can't do Nevada, things like that, because it's very expensive to obtain those as well. So I just hope they get their things in order. I like it a lot. There is a little bit of a delay when you're doing things in the evening or on the weekend. because if they do use an actual bank. So sometimes if you don't do it during normal business hours, you're gonna probably have to, wait till the next day, until it goes through and it clears. So if you do it at night, you're probably not going to see it till the next day. If you do it during business hours of 8 to 5 in the United States, um, it goes through pretty quickly. I think it takes 7 or 8 minutes once the transaction's done and from your bank to actually convert it and put it into the Coast token in your wallet. So it's always been pretty straightforward. I know there were a couple people early on that had some issues, but they got them resolved. But yeah, it's been a good experience for me. Wiring money, I haven't done it personally, but I've heard people say it was super smooth. Which anybody that's moving larger chunks of money should probably wire it anyway. You're going to pay less in fees, and it's going to get there a lot quicker. You're not going to be worried about delays. So that's the best way to move. I would say more than $5,000 or so. If you're going to move that amount, definitely use the wire option. So, but yeah, I wish them well. I've always liked those guys. They have good customer service. People answer. There's an online chat right on the page. All you do is type a message, and somebody's usually right there within a couple minutes to answer it. So that's a nice feature as well.
Yeah, they have been awesome so far for sure. Hopefully they get that squared away sometime soon. But yeah, if you are somebody who's been primarily using them and after return to doing things the traditional bridging way, I mean, it's really not that difficult. And we even have a tutorial for it somewhere on the channel. But just going to pulsechain.com and using the bridge, sending your DAI or whatever it is to your MetaMask or whatever wallet you are using. Make sure you just go directly to pulsechain.com. Go to the bridge there and connect. There's still no bridge fee. So we still have free bridge fees on the PulseChain side. There is an ETH gas fee to send over. But as far as fees for going to PulseChain right now, we are still in the free holiday period, as Richard Hart called it. So
yeah. And since you mentioned it, gas fees are down to about 30, 34, 33 right now. So
manageable.
Just went to 42. It was, 70 earlier today. I saw 70 or 80. So it is half of that right now. If you've got anything to do, take advantage of it. And we don't know how long these fees are going to stay that low. It is going to get ugly pretty soon, I imagine.
I think so too. Bitfinesse, yes, you're totally correct. ACH does suck everywhere. I hate it. Even if you're using it to get onto exchange or something like that, I mean, just the delays and everything, it's just ridiculously antiquated to be able to access your own money. Hey, appreciate that, Yavs. Literally the best radio voice he's ever heard. So, hey, I was born with this voice. When I came out of the womb, this is just what I sounded like, actually. So, no shit, though. I had an audio recorder when I was 6 years old that my dad bought me, and I would sit in front of the TV calling Atlanta Braves games when I was 6 years old and be watching radio people all the time. So, something I was always into. So, appreciate that. I want to see what Patrick just said here. Sami just released a video that alts are getting hot. Biggest alt season coming. 1 minute alt season almost finished and now getting started. We'll have to see what he's talking about there. But yeah, I think what he may mean is the harder the Bitcoin does pump right now, the more likely we are going to get a pretty good one very soon. Yeah. After this thing turns around. So let's do our weekly Gophers update. So we got some news. Yeah, these cute little creatures. So we got an update from Dipcatcher the other day. It's something that he's calling a roof pole, which I found to be pretty interesting. So I did bookmark the tweet that he did put out the other day that this is happening. And it may have already happened. I haven't really been paying attention. I know that Gophers, after their little wee dip, have been starting to pump again. And we actually saw parity of both of them on each chain, on ETH and PulseChain. But Dipcatcher said that some notes from Minty B, who is, I guess, who put out this news release, he said about the upcoming Gophers roof pull. If you aren't catching what that means, it's the opposite of a rug pull. So they say that starting at an undisclosed time this week, the Gophers in the sell side of the liquidity pools on both ETH and PulseChain will start to be pulled and burnt. There is no actual burn function So the Gophers will be sent to a purpose-built Hotel Gopherfornia contract where the Gophers can go in, but they can never leave, just like the song. The Hotel I can't even say Gopherfornia. I can't even look at that word and pronounce it.
Gopherfornia.
Hotel Gopherfornia contract will be whitelisted. Poor function name choice. There's so many nonsense words in here that I'm getting thrown off guard, which will prevent it from minting NFTs on receipt. The roof pull is not a one and done thing. It is more a way of life. At Minty B's discretion, she may continue to burn Gophers that are sold into her liquidity position indefinitely. She may also pause burning. All actions will be done on a best effort basis to achieve the goals of increased scarcity while maintaining an active liquid market. Minty B thanks you all for giving her this opportunity to serve the Gophers community. So, what do you make of this update where essentially it seems like the Gophers supply will get more scarce and the coining of this roof pull term rather than a rug pull, which we're also familiar with, Ewok?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was neat how they put a cap on it, to allow people to try and get in to these things at all the same time. Dipcatcher's always been pretty creative, and he's a pretty smart feller, uh,
Yes.
which is better than a fart smeller. But
Yeah.
he designed it so that there was plenty of liquidity for people, and the price of it didn't like get crazy out of control. He wanted a bunch of people to participate, so it'll be neat to see that once that gets removed, it pretty much takes the limit off of it for people. Will it have success? Well, Minty B probably said it was going to 10 gazillion X. So, we have to just take her word for it. I think it's going to be neat. I think it's definitely a what's the pumpamental for them. I think, let me take a look here. I think I have it pulled up. I hate to put it in these terms, but they started at around in here they were like 6 million pulse for one of them. Now they're up to 8.2, and this is supposed to happen sometime this week. So as far as USD value goes, you're still looking at $1,100 for one of these things. So it's getting to the point now where it's getting pretty pricey. So we'll see.
Yeah, but remember that's the whole point, though, because a lot of people are bitching about like, well, it's $1,100. That's the whole point of this ERC 404 token. I mean, you do not have to buy a full one. Now, I think we had a discussion about this the other night, and the reason I say I think is because I think I was getting a little buzzed by this point of the night. But yeah, if memory serves, I think we were having a discussion about this, and you were talking about like I could be making this up, so maybe I'm just throwing you under the bus. But like, well, you got to have a whole one, like you want to get the NFT or whatever. It's like, do you? I mean, like, yeah, I guess so if you're really hell bent on getting the NFT. But I mean, like, if you want to just be in on the ecosystem and you're there for the price performance, I mean, that's the whole point of the ERC 404. You can buy a quarter of a gopher. Maybe you get its leg and its tail or something. Do Gophers have tails? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like maybe you just get a quarter of a gopher, the head, the eyes, I don't know. But at that point, you're still investing in them. So to me, that's the beauty of it. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, you want to get a full one if you can, obviously, but don't feel like you're priced out just because these things are $1,100 already. That's what I would tell people. What do you make of that?
Well, I kind of agree. I mean, I think the idea behind it is to get one of them, and that's what makes them more rare. Dipcatcher even said at a certain point, the number, excuse me, the number of them will be, because when you buy and sell, they get burned and they get reminted and burned again. The number of the one that you have will probably be worth something at some point. Who knows? I'm very, I've never been an NFT fan, but I do think it's a cool idea. And I think if you're going to get one, yeah, you can get a quarter of one, get a half of one, but I think the idea is to still end up with a full one.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's the idea, but I don't want people to feel like they're priced out because the prices are higher. But either
No,
way, I mean, what I love is that we are seeing bullish action on both chains. We've seen the ETH one really move up as well. So yeah, shout out Dip Catcher. We had him on the show last week. So if you want to catch any kind of knowledge, not only about Gophers, but about he just released Pool Party, the actual party token, which I think has been pumping pretty solidly so
yeah,
far, which is a new way to create pools to stake HEX. I would
yep.
check out that interview. We had a lot of really thorough conversation with him on those. So,
And that is one thing I can say about Dipcatcher. He's always been one to find different ways to increase the hex usage and get around the gas fees. I mean, I think that's one of his biggest things that, even way back when he said, he did the calculation early on in hex and said, man, in 15 years, the amount of calculations that are needed to end a stake, a full 5555, you may get 2 of those in one full block. It's going to be very gas intensive. And that's when he started to come up with the the Maximus and the other Decimus and Trio and Lucky and those, what are they called, the perpetuals. Yes. So he has always been a big proponent of hex staking, and that's one of the reasons why I've supported the stuff that he does too. So just
yeah.
shout out to that main cause of why he does what he does.
Yeah, the stuff from him and Alex McWhorter are amazing, I think. Yeah, just thinking outside the box and making, products that really do enhance Hex. So definitely shout out those guys. Let's wrap up here. Just kind of something interesting we've been wanting to mention for a couple of weeks. You had a bit of a gripe about some Twitter behavior earlier. This is my gripe, and I think you share it too. But thoughts on some of these like entity Twitter accounts that are kind of tweeting like drunken sailors? So we've seen this. I will not name names. I'm just not interested in it. But you'll know. I mean, if you've been looking around, but there are. It's not even just within PulseChain. So I'm not going to say that. But we traditionally follow just PulseChain stuff, so that's what we're going to see. But we've seen, we'll say, different decentralized exchange type places, maybe some places that list pricing and also have ways to buy Pulse on them and things like that. Just kind of engage in a very, hey, this is just my personal account. I'll say whatever I want. Fuck you type of manner.
Yeah.
We've seen that from a couple of them. And I'm not here to tell anybody how to run a business or how to act or anything like that. I'm just here as a consumer that shares his thoughts. And like, to me personally, I'll just kind of explain what these people are doing, but putting their kind of singular self into their tweets. So, they look untrustworthy when they do that. When you get like really angry, get into Twitter tiffs, use the pronoun of I rather than just saying like we or the company or something like that. Now there's some entities that do terrific. Like I think oxCoast actually is a good example. I've never seen any of that behavior from them or anything. You need to tweet like a united front. I actually saw B Roots telling this to one of those entities, and I agreed with them 100%. Like, look, one of us can be out there talking that way if we want to. We're representing ourselves. We might have only ourselves in our profile picture, whatever. But when you speak for an organization of people, which I assume a lot of these have more than one person behind them, you really shouldn't be tweeting like that. Because like if I worked for you or was associated with you and you were acting like that, I would want to separate myself from you.
Yep.
And as a consumer, I'm not saying that I'm like boycotting anybody yet at this juncture. I guess it depends on how good your product is. But when you act like that, it sparks, especially because we're in crypto, it sparks a hell of a lot of doubt in you. And I think a lot of people feel that way. So yeah, what kind of have you been seeing, and what do you think about that, Ewok?
Yeah, again, we're not going to call anybody out by name, but do better. Just do better. If you've got a beef with somebody, you make another account. Don't use the business account for it. It looks terrible. Again, just like you said, it can cause some doubt about who's behind this. are you drunk? What's going on? Like, are you going to do something to, you know, risk or jeopardize the product that you've created that I possibly invested in, or that I use all the time? Should I look for something else? It just doesn't look good. So, you know, I'm sure people don't, whatever. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. They're not going to listen to us. But, you know, hopefully calling it out and saying, look, use a personal account. Don't use the business one. If you've got a beef with somebody, try and take it offline. First of all, I mean, it doesn't look good in the first place anyway. But, you know, if you've got to settle it online, you know, use a individual account and not the business one. So yeah, it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've been seeing it here and there. I had another point on that I have forgotten, I believe now. But yeah, we've been seeing that going around, and yeah, just realize who it is you're representing. And here's what it was. We have seen, especially like I said a moment ago in crypto, like we've seen many of these entities end up being rug pulls that acted like that. Like we've seen plenty of characters come along and start acting like that. And maybe it isn't some kind of instant rug pull or something, but over the course of months and months and months, they show who they really are. And then, they rage quit and they're gone for a couple of months. No, then they come back and resurface and are talking about, being nice to everybody again. So we've seen it before, and we do not trust you when you act like that. So just a caution to the few accounts that we've seen doing that. I mean, it definitely tempts me to use other services than your own when you act like a child. So, you can say free speech and all. I could say what, yeah, you can. And our free speech will be not using you anymore if you continue to act like a dumbass. So just something to consider for sure. So, yeah. I think that's pretty much all we got. So we had a really active chat tonight. So shout out all you guys, Patrick's Astros and Turf, KD, Bitfinesse, Yabs earlier, Big Funky, a lot of great guys in here. And Johnny Chaos, of course, we saw and RH Max earlier. And we're getting a lot of new people that we haven't heard of yet. So we don't know if that means that you just kind of stumbled across us recently, or maybe you're new to the market, but we welcome you either way and are really excited for this bull run. So any other final thoughts from you tonight, Ewok?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Patrick's Astro and stuff said just a shout out. Tri-Blend t-shirts are super comfortable. So, if you want one of the, in fact, I have mine on tonight, the Crypto Crypto.
Oh, boom. There you go.
T-shirt. Mine is a Tri-Blend as well, and they are super comfortable. So you want one of them, stop over. I think they're advertised on the YouTube channel, as well as creativecrypto.com. We'll send you right there too. There's only a couple of them right now. If you want one, great. If not, that's cool too. But they're out there.
Quality over quantity. Yeah, we have three different one. Well, PulseChain, PulseX, and Hex, and then one of the actual show. So all I think are very sleek designs that were designed by yours truly, both of us. So check those out and grab yourself a tea. Or hey, it's still cold maybe in your neck of the woods. We got hoodies on there, all kinds of crap. So go check it out. Very thankful for all you guys being here. We will be here again next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for Crypto Ewok, this has been a Broke Boi Crypto right here on the Creed of Crypto podcast. See you guys.